So I'm ready for you,
Let's
Joe.
do it. I'm ready to go. Let's get in there.
All right.
It's great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Of course. Yes, likewise. Likewise.
So let's begin our journey with this. 6 years ago, this pandemic was changing the world, changing our lives. And we don't talk about it a lot, but how did you get through that era? And how has it changed the way that you work and live today?
Oh, goodness gracious. You know that when the pandemic hit, I was living in South Africa. So I had a very different experience than your average American. And at that point, working from home was a new thing, right? I had dared the universe for years and years and years because I had young kids. I have young kids. And at that time, they were even younger. I thought, I do not want to go back to the office. I do not ever want to work in the office again. Because I just wanted to spend more time with the kids. And then the pandemic happened. And then they were on top of me all the time.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like, be careful what you wish for.
uh-huh, right.
Now you can't leave, there's no place to go. I remember at times we weren't even allowed to leave our houses, really. If you're going to the grocery store, it was a big deal. You had to be all, masked and all sorts of things. And so since then, I don't think I've ever gone back to working in an
Yeah,
office environment again. I just continue working remotely, for better or worse. But that pandemic was a really big eye opener for
yeah,
many of us, just in terms of um, our own distribution, our understanding of time, our own distribution of what's important, allocation of what gets our priority when, and the texture and quality of our relationships.
yeah,
Those got really tested.
yeah.
um, I know at that point, I started to have some thoughts about my then marriage. I was like, oh, okay, this thing,
Yeah, yeah,
maybe there's some things that could be worked on, but
yes.
so yeah, um, that's the long and short. I've not ever gone back to work in an office environment ever again, um, for better or worse.
So, yeah, and I think that is almost a good thing that happened out of that, even with telehealth and other things, where you would have to
Yeah,
load up, get in the car, drive, do all of this. I think there's parts of this that make more sense in this
yeah,
technologically driven era. But I think, as connected as we were, ironically, I think we crave human connection, going to a
yeah,
concert,
yeah,
seeing people, mingling,
yeah,
and those
yeah.
kinds of things. So hopefully that's a lasting part of what we live through that won't go away.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I in the same breath, Joe, as much as I, reveled in the notion of never having to get in a car to go work, this, yeah, that I think I'm going stir crazy.
Yeah.
I need people. I
Yes.
really do. I've said to myself recently, I think the better environment for me is a hybrid where, I can have ample opportunity to be with humans and then still have the flexibility to work from home. It's humbling to
Yeah.
think about it that way, but we're social beings. We really are.
Yeah.
We do need that human interaction,
For sure.
truly. Yeah.
So let's peel back the layers of how you got from South Africa to America and your job more specifically. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 13-year-olds at career day. You're in a school, and the kid in the back of the room wants to know what you do for a living. How do you make your day job make sense to their brains?
Oh, that's a really interesting way of putting it. Well, what I do is I help people um, be less fearful of change, be less fearful of what is unknown and what is uncertain. So, for example, if you have a test coming up and you're feeling very anxious about it, remember we're talking to that little kid, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
As
Uh-huh.
you did me,
Yes.
right? For example, if that's the case, I work with you. I can help you. I can give you some mindset tools. I can give you some tricks you can tell yourself that'll help you be less anxious about the upcoming test. And remember that you're going to be okay regardless. So if you're with the tools that I have, you'll find you'll be a lot calmer, And um, beyond just the test, even going back home, you'll realize no matter what happens, be it, oh, your friends don't like you anymore, or whatever hardships that come that are unexpected and unwelcome, you'll be able to remember what I shared with you, hopefully, that I call pivot.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So, what did you want to be when you were that age? When you were at career day and you were thinking about your life as a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh God, Joe, that was 1,007 years ago. And I the earliest version I remember, I wanted to be a computer programmer.
Okay.
Um, and that I would have been about, I think I was at least middle school then.
Okay.
In the 80s, there was that Knight Rider. Do you,
Yeah.
you know? Not,
Oh, yeah. Of course.
oh, yeah, right?
Yeah.
That, and there was Bonnie in
Uh-huh.
Knight Rider. She was a computer programmer.
Yes.
And there was Kit, the supercar, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so Bonnie inspired me growing up in South Africa. We watched that. I grew up on that show, that and the A Team and, all those fun 80s shows. So that was my first inspiration. I thought that's what I wanted to do. And then I've changed a million times since then. At
Yeah.
some point, not only did I change my mind, but I actually just went through different unrelated careers because I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up, Joe.
Yeah. That's okay. I still remember when I was in college, I was in a poetry class. There was a woman in there that had to be in her 70s. And we were all going around talking about what we wanted to do when we grew up. And, there's people that wanted to be big time authors and this, that, and the other. And I remember she said, I just never want to grow up. And I remember how
Oh,
profound that was. And it's that idea of
yeah,
not knowing exactly because there's
yeah,
so much and you're trying to figure it out. And it's like, I think
yeah,
that's almost the danger for young minds sometimes. They have to know what they're doing, they have to have
yeah,
this plan. But there's that
yeah,
wonder that comes into your lives.
yeah,
And
yeah,
sometimes that can be a vocation in itself,
yeah. Absolutely.
you know?
Absolutely. And I think as parents, we really put a lot of pressure on our kids.
Yeah.
In school, we expect them to pick a track, do STEM subjects or do your arts, or, we really do put our kids under a bit of pressure to have to decide earlier on how they want their lives to pan out.
Yeah.
And that really kills it for
Yeah.
them on
Yeah.
some level, really. So,
You had mentioned about helping people get through the unknown. And when you do that, there's a level of like fearlessness that goes into it. And there's a part of that that's interwoven into our DNA, but then there's another part of it, obviously, that can be taught. What was it about your environment growing up that taught you these levels of fearlessness and being okay with the unknown and getting to this point where you're helping imbue people with that notion? What did you see? How did you grow up? And how did this become your career?
yeah. Well, I grew up in a very different environment than today. I grew up in South Africa in the 70s and 80s. There was a formalized system of racial discrimination, which is called apartheid, which means you are not allowed to mingle or live or get to know anybody who has a different skin tone than you do, essentially. So I grew up in a really homogenous society, in a really homogenous community. Everybody I knew spoke my first language. Yes, I learned English in school, but that was the extent of it. Um, and so, luckily, when I became of age, when I became a teenager, it happened to coincide with the time that that system was legally dismantled in the
Yeah.
90s. I don't know if you've heard of Nelson Mandela and
Oh,
whatnot.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So in 1994, when he got out of jail, I was in my late teens,
Okay.
starting college. And the world was very curious about South Africans. And I luckily got a scholarship to leave the country and go study abroad. And I remember when I went to an international school for the first time, moving from that totally homogenous society. And I'd lived in it. I'd gone to boarding school for high school. So for 5 years, I had lived and slept at school. right? Going home like 4 times a year. I remember when I got to this international school, Joe, I could not believe different people's hair texture, skin color, you name it.
Yeah.
I was so fascinated.
Yeah.
I'd seen them on TV. I knew there was Bonnie, and the A team. There are people out there, but I had never touched anybody
Yeah.
that didn't look like me, right? Let alone really get to know them, have a conversation like you and I having right now.
Yeah.
That is where my troubles began. I started to get very curious about the world. I wanted to see every piece of the world and meet every culture I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
And so from that international school, it was a 2 year program. I did an international baccalaureate. I just started looking for scholarships. And I then spent about 20 years living around the world, quite literally on scholarships. I would just apply, go get a degree, and go to this country, and go to this country, go to this country. And it absolutely, and I always gravitated towards what's different because of that hunger, where you grow up seeing everybody looks like you. It's like, wow, I haven't experienced that yet.
Yes.
How do they take? And I remember, of all the countries I've lived in, and I've lived in about 8 countries and numerous cities, villages. I don't know how many, but what stands out most for me was when I went to a country where I spoke where I didn't understand the language. That was Thailand. That was an eye opener. And
Yeah.
I had chosen Thailand because I thought, listen, this is, I want to experience, what that would be like. And then when you get there and everybody looks at you as they'd never, I mean, it was very rural Thailand. They
Yeah.
had never seen anyone brown skinned.
Sure.
So that was very interesting for
Yeah.
me. Um, anyway, long and short, that is how I ended up so drawn to change. A combination of curiosity, given just that background of growing up, I guess, deprived of it. But what led me to the real work I do now, my bread and butter, is unexpected change.
Yeah.
As you do, as you go, as go through life, there's so many the unexpected, unwelcome things that get thrown in your way.
Yeah.
And so mine most it was more the most recent one, which happened about 4 years ago and lasted about 4 years, where I had a series of really unpleasant and unexpected changes happening all at the same time. I had just moved to the US and, from South Africa with my 3 kids. I was suddenly parenting alone. I was dissolving a marriage and I found myself jobless and I was having a legal battle I didn't choose. And I mean, I could go on, the list is infinite. At that point, I decided, all right, I better figure out how to navigate, how to help myself out of this. I call it a tsunami, a period of tsunami.
Yeah.
I better figure out a way to help myself transition or navigate this tsunami without losing myself. And that's what led me to retroactively create this framework that I call Pivot, which is what I teach people that to recalibrate their minds so that they go through change feeling more empowered and with less fear. So it
So
was a long story.
yeah, no, I love it. I love it. You knocked a lot of dominoes down along the way, and I'm curious for as far as like figures that are in modern history or even in any realm of history, Mandela stands out as one of the most magnanimous examples of
Yeah,
literal patience, integrity, and strength. And
yeah.
I'm curious, coming from that environment and seeing how much change he ushered in, what is it like to watch America right now going into this very clowny, weird realm of like backing, like rescinding all of this progress that we saw for so long? I mean, we went from
Yeah,
Obama to this, and it's
I
like,
know.
how do you process this coming from South Africa and Mandela and that world to now?
Oh, Joe, if I have to tell you a little secret,
Yeah,
okay, and then I'll answer your question more directly. I left the United States soon after Obama's first, when he was elected the
yeah,
first time.
yeah.
I left and I went back to South Africa for a few years. My kids were super little then, blah, 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 blah. So I left right as Obama was coming in. There's all that excitement. I mean, it was like, wow, the world has arrived. And guess when I came back? I was like, whoa,
What happened?
whoa, everybody. Whatever happened to the country I left not too long ago?
That's the way I feel now. Like, what happened? Like, we woke
Yeah,
up and
yeah,
everything, it's just doesn't make any sense.
yeah. It really doesn't. It's quite frightening looking at how much, we seem to be regressing in this country where it, just humanity is concerned. It seems like everything we had learned to this point, we are having to unlearn. It's quite disheartening.
Yeah,
It's quite disheartening. And in all that said, I dare myself to make my work more relevant
yeah,
from a dual prong. First, the whole notion of navigating change. All of us are going through change that we've gotten thrown into that makes us all very anxious. Yeah. How do we as humans just anchor ourselves and create space in our own internal space? Forget the world. The world's going to be crazy as hell. It is crazy as hell.
yeah,
But how do we anchor ourselves?
yep,
That's part of the the big work I do with mindset recalibrating to really empower yourself
yeah,
to deal with all the madness. The second piece, I talk about dancing with change and I talk about dancing with difference. By difference, I mean, how do we coexist with differences? With those of us, without getting into the language of DEI or not. I mean, I know it's gotten really politicized and we're not allowed to say certain things. But at the end of the day, it's all about differences. You think differently than I do, you look differently than I do, whatever you do. How do we get ourselves to more comfortably coexist with what is different, not what is similar, what is different.
absolutely.
So that's the other piece that I address through my work. And that again goes back to that mental recalibration. Because if you think about it, it's really the same thing. Whether it's change as an external change, your dog dies, right? It's a shock. Or here is Khutso with spiked hair. I have no idea what she represents because she looks weird, right? It's still a shock. So they are
Yeah,
very similar
yes,
um, problems
yes,
to address. And I find the same tool tends to be applicable to both scenarios.
yeah. So let me ask you this. Who's been that inspirational force for you in your life to have this thirst for learning about the world, to change people, write your book and everything that you've done? Who has been that consistent hero for you?
Um, that's a bit of a hard one because, and I allow myself to be inspired by little bits and pieces of people. I don't gurufy.
Yeah,
I'm not what I was like, oh, this person's my guru.
yeah,
I don't do that. Um, and I'd have to say probably the one person only because they've shaped me a lot. It would be my parents,
yeah,
really. My my parents are very interesting, Joe. They lived ahead of their time, I would say.
yeah,
I mean, they obviously are like 20, 30 years older than me. They lived in the heart of apartheid,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And somehow they managed to defy the odds and they normalized life for us. I mean, people hear my story, oh, you grew up during apartheid, you must have suffered so much. No, not really.
yeah,
I grew up well. My parents, especially my mom, who ended up raising us alone. My father died when I was 5, so she had 3 kids to raise on her own. That, if you're talking about role modeling, for better or worse, it stuck with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really did.
Yeah.
Just a demonstration of the world is crazy out there,
Yeah.
but you gotta have your own sanctuary here,
Yeah.
and nothing beats this.
Yeah.
And Kutso, it doesn't matter what the world thinks of you, how they think you look. You walk tall in your own shoes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's that.
I love
Sorry.
that. I
You can
love
tell
it.
I get very
Yeah, yeah,
passionate.
no, I love it. I love it. So let me ask you this. What is that energy every day for you to do this work at a high level, to change lives and minds, take care of your soul, your family? What is that when that alarm clock goes off in the morning for you?
Um, you know what keeps me going, what excites me every morning is just realizing that my work does touch lives when it does land. Admittedly, I haven't always done this work. I only started doing this work like a year ago, and really started doing it full time like 2 months ago, because I got laid off. So now I'm living my own framework, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's another whole story.
Uh-huh.
But just thinking about the feedback I get from audiences every time I have the opportunity to share what I share with them. Oh, that makes everything so much more worthwhile. I'm like, lay off, whatever,
Yeah, yeah, yes, yes.
just, but truly being able to touch lives, I suppose.
So let's say you had a dream tonight. You ran into the 18-year-old version of you, and you walk into a room, current day, and there's a film projector, and you click play, and there's a 60-second highlight reel of this life you've lived, the choices you've made. Would that young version of you believe your life turned out this way?
Um, oh, that's a hard one. Um, yes and no. Yes, in the sense that I've always had a strong belief in internal locus of control. I've always known that I chart my own path. And I'd always known that I was going to be okay.
Yeah,
Didn't matter where I started from, but I always knew I was going to be okay. But the nuances of how I arrived here, the journey, and ultimately the lessons I learned along the way, those I didn't see coming. And I'll give you an example. Um, maybe it wasn't an no, maybe it was. Maybe I was 18 or even younger. Part of my upbringing, when you grow up during apartheid as a black South African female, you got issues because society is very oppressive of women to begin with.
yeah,
So from about the time I was about 5, I knew I called myself a feminist, and I didn't even speak English, but I thought this word feminist sounded like something I would want to be, right? And as I grew up, I kind of at the back of my mind thought, one day I'm going to write books. One day I'm going to get on stages. And one day I'm going to help um, inspire women to stand up and do more and claim their space, not be oppressed anymore. And guess what? The first book I released end of last year is the exact opposite.
yeah,
The message is not so much you got to get out there and do more. The message is you're strong enough. You don't have to prove yourself anymore.
yeah,
Chill.
yeah,
Life is meant to be fun.
yeah,
So, yes, it's supporting women, but in a very different way than I imagined I would be.
yeah. So, of everything that you've done, overcome, accomplished, traveled, everything that's happened, ultimately at the end of the day, what are you the happiest about, the proudest of?
Oh, happiest and proudest of. Oh, that's tough. Happiest. Well, I'm very fortunate to have my kids. Obviously, that's a cop out. Every parent says that. Proud. I think I've checked off a heck of a lot of my bucket list items now. I have managed to, I got a couple of books under my belt, and I truly, whether I was ready or not, am now thrown into this limelight of being this speaker. Um, and and I've seen as much of the world as I could squeeze into 30 years or so.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, so overall, I really think I have led a pretty fortunate life. I think I've managed to create a lot of what I wanted. And then the doctorate. The doctorate has a whole story of its own.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's a whole journey.
Yeah.
But so overall, I feel like I'm proud of the fact that I was able to, achieve a lot of what I wanted to achieve.
So let's get into the heart and soul, the real intersection of your soul and mind. Everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that sees you speak, everyone that gets your books, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh gosh, I am just a work in progress, Joe.
Yeah.
Every day I discover a little bit more about who I am, what I'm capable of, what I want. Um, so yeah, I think I'm just, I'm just learning as I go.
Yeah.
I really am
Yeah.
just trying to figure it out. And the biggest lesson I'd say is I'm learning to have fun.
Yeah.
I'm really learning to have fun.
Yeah.
That's probably one of my prouder accomplishments. Just learning to have fun. Because I'd never, I mean, it's like fun. What? We work here.
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What? What
Yeah.
fun?
Uh-huh. Right. Exactly. No, that's the cornerstone of all of it. So if anyone wants to reach out, they want to see you speak, they have questions, they want to get your books, any of the good business, where do they go?
Info at dancewithchange.com. Dance with change is one word. And same goes for my website. It's just
Okay.
dancewithchange.com. One word.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's
I will get
Dance
all
with
of
Change.
the yeah, I will get all of those links out there. What a wonderful story. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. It was great to meet you. Best of luck with the books. Best of luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for the great conversation, Joe.
It was
It
my
really,
pleasure.
I felt like we were just chatting. I forgot we were on a podcast even.
Yeah, no, that's great.